And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. Welcome to IT Career in Australia live stream. And tonight's topic is what it's like to work as an IT consultant. So, again, thank you so much for finding some time this evening to join our live discussion. Please make sure to introduce yourselves in the comments. Let us know what you do and join our conversation with your comments and questions. So if you're new to my live show, I'm Jana Martins, and I've recently entered IT industry myself. So I'm passionate about learning more and also share my new findings with you on this YouTube channel. So again, tonight we're going to talk about what it's like to work as an IT consultant. And Kira is going to share her story, her experience, and give some tips on what skills you need and what you need to know before entering IT consulting world and what skills you need to succeed. So it's obviously incredibly relevant topics for those who are thinking about moving into consulting. So make sure to tag and share it with your colleagues and friends who need to hear this. And before I pass it on to Kira to introduce herself, I just want to remind you quickly that we're going live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So you can watch replays on my YouTube channel, IT Career in Australia. So please subscribe to watch the replays. I'm going live there every Wednesday, 5:30 p.m. Melbourne time, with various experts from my network. And we're talking about all the things, job search, IT career, and specifics of IT industry in Australia. So you can also join my meetup group. So you can register for upcoming events and get notifications. And please, again, don't be shy. Answer your question. Ask your questions. Leave some comments. We'll try to answer majority of your questions from all the platforms. And the most active participants also will receive the nice surprise at the end of the stream. So also, I always encourage you to use this live stream not only to learn new information, but to network with other people in the industry. So you will be surprised how far the networking can, take you. So again, that's enough of me. So again, please make sure to, introduce yourself in the comments. Let us know your name and what you're doing. Japrakash is here. I'm a graduate electrical engineer, want to make my career as an IT consultant. Smail is here. Hello, everyone. Thank you guys for joining us. So again, that's enough for me. Just passing on to Kiro to introduce herself, please.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to be here this evening. So I'm here to talk about IT consultant, which means that I'm working as a consultant at the moment. So I'm a developer by trade. So I studied computer science, in the university, and I started my career as a developer. And after 8 years or so, I made a switch from enterprise product company to work in the consulting world. So now I work in ThoughtWorks, Australia, and I'm based in Melbourne.
Perfect. Thank you, Kira. And I guess we'll, dig in straight to that. Also, guys, before we start our discussion, please let us know if any of you is thinking to move into consulting. Yep. So obviously, Japrakash already mentioned that, he's thinking to move into IT consultancy. So it would be nice to know if any of you would like to thinking about this career choice as well. Jason's asking, ThoughtWorks, was it? Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yep, ThoughtWorks at the moment. So, I guess, Kira, would be nice, as usual, start with your story. If you tell us a little bit yourself, and I guess, when is this, when have you decided you want to, move into consultancy and why? So please, give us a bit of an overview.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So like I was saying before, I was started as a graduate during the final year of my study, and I should say I was lucky to work with Honeywell. So I did my graduate program there, and after my university degree, I continued to work with Honeywell. Um, so as you would know, like kind of there's a saying, anything that flies flies with Honeywell. So which means that a lot of the code and a lot of the product that we were developing internally at Honeywell was so critical. So I got really lucky and kind of learning all the fundamentals right. So the initial few years of my career were very interesting, exciting. So there were things that I would learn both technically and otherwise in terms of how do they manage an initiative, how do they plan an initiative. So first few years of my career was like just went in no time and all exciting, working with really awesome people who have been in that industry for such a long time and all the fundamentals of how do you write a good software, what does that mean, because a lot of the code that we were writing would eventually end up in flight management systems. So it's like if you're sitting in a plane, all the data that comes from all the different sensors that goes as an input to the decision making engine would all be like the code that we are writing. So it was nervous, anxious, but at the same time, it's like it was like great opportunity to learn on the fundamentals right there. I think like kind of continued that for a few years, and of course, like anybody else, like had a bit of a progression. Started as an engineer, then senior engineer, and started working as tech lead. So of course, like the responsibilities kind of changed with time, and I think in my career, probably I hit a point where things are more predictable. And especially maybe it's also because the nature of the industry that most of the initiatives would be long running. So it'll be running for a few years. So which means that you're working on something for a few years. So as a developer for me at that point in time, so I was working on one particular tech stack, of course, gave me an opportunity to develop the depth of the knowledge on certain things, but also means that it is just like few languages, few frameworks. So got into that repeated pattern of doing things. And I think at that point I tried to do a different things. I was very lucky, like kind of people who are with me were very supportive, very understanding. So I tried to do a few different roles. I tried doing like kind of a product owner role for some time. I tried to do like kind of a delivery owner or principal role for a bit. And I think, I mean, I was going okay, but maybe I was not really enjoying it so much. Um, I think I just wanted variety in life, maybe just a phase of life where I was like, just go do things. It's okay to fail and have a bit of an adventure. I think that's when kind of I had a thought. I won't say that I had a clarity on what exactly I want to do, but just that I was like, I want to do something different, learn something new, and as well continue to stay as a core technologist. And I think probably at that time, like one of the options that was kind of on top of my mind was to try working as a consultant. I think at that time, I should say, I was thinking I would try and do it for a few years, a year or two, and then go back to what I was doing before. So I think that's when it started. And I kind of moved countries and yeah, started working with ThoughtWorks. It has been 8 years now, and I think it's still going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
8 years. That's
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially when
It
the
is.
original plan was just, one or two.
Yeah, I know. I know. But I think I think there's a bit of a, what do I say, a mix of anxiety and excitement every time you start on a new engagement. I think like it's like every time you go on a new engagement, it could be a completely different problem, and in some cases potential for me to actually arrive at the technical roadmap. So sometimes like part of the team which decides, what language do we use and how do we design it, how do we implement it. So I guess like there's a lot of variety here. So yes, 8 years is a long time, but I think it's like a lot of variety in
Right. Yeah.
what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Smail is actually asking, what is the main role of IT consultant? Can you define the role? Do you think, yeah, can
Mm.
you,
Yeah,
define what's the actual IT consultant?
sure. I think if you just look at IT consultant, that's very broad and very abstract, and in a way, sometimes it also depends on your company or if you're contracting. But I think in general, in the industry, usually they seek out for a consultant when they are looking for specialists to help them with a particular problem, or when they are looking for SMEs who might have done and solved similar things, who might be able to come join them and share their experiences, share their opinions, and help them with their journey. I think that's kind of a general, situation where a company might actually go seek out for a consultant. And particularly in ThoughtWorks, we are actually like, you know, kind of, I mean, if in our company, in my current company, so we are like kind of focusing on helping clients with their technology journey. So pretty much we believe that technology is at core, and we help them actually build things better. So in my current company, so it's more about bringing in that cross-functional, diverse roles and looking at the problem, understanding the problem. Sometimes it's also about helping the client understand what the problem is, and then together work on, okay, what we need to do from there on.
Yeah, so
So
it seems
sometimes
like
like I
one of
just
the main, coming back to the main role of IT consultants actually solve the problem.
Yeah, I would say even like define the problem, understand the
Define.
problem, and then
Hmm.
solve it right.
Uh, Actually, and coming back to ThoughtWorks, Jason's asking if they like quite different from the typical consulting company.
I wouldn't say they are like completely different, but we are different in what we believe in. So as a company, we're not like, contractors or, people with specific skills, where if someone is like, say, a work is happening in Java or Kotlin and they're short on developers, can you give me two developers, four developers for a period of few days? That's not who we are, but we kind of believe in partnering with our clients and together understanding the problem and together kind of solving the problem.
Perfect. Rodney's here saying hi. Hi, Rodney. Haven't seen you for ages. Yes, some people popping in.
Yeah.
Japrakash saying IT consultant lead the growth of the company on a higher level. Would you agree with that?
Okay, so I'm just making sure I understand it right. So are we looking at the
The,
individual career path? Oh.
I think like it's he trying to define the role of the IT consultant
Mm-hmm.
as
Uh,
leading is now as leading the growth of the company to the high level.
uh, I think like from where I am today, like if you look, from my perspective, I think in that's an advantage in some of the consulting industry, because there's no product, right? Like say if you compare it with a typical product company, say if you're like kind of developing an app, then that becomes the core of your business. So you'll be
Mm-hmm.
really looking at, okay, what's the app, what the features are, who my customers are, what's their pricing model, and how do I market it, how do I sell it, and all that. And if you kind of do a similar comparison with the consulting company, the core of the company is people. So it's all about, like, what kind of people, what their specialist skills are, what they are interested in, and together, like, what does the team can do. So in a way, kind of, people become the core of the consulting companies, in addition to, some companies specialize in a particular area. Some might be offering, say, specialization in software, specialization in data. I think in addition to that, pretty much, if you take any consulting industry, the core of it is people. So in a way, they kind
100%.
of define where the company could go next.
Yeah. And if you guys didn't know, I work for IT consultancy as well. And all we talk about that the
Yeah.
people is, is the core for any consultancy. And, as much as the technology is important, we can't just, disregard the people component. It's always all about the people, not people first, technology second. And Snail is asking, does it include outsourcing solutions from tech vendors, for example?
Okay. At least from my point of view, that is very different. So to me, from my experiences, consulting is like where you go sit with the client. So, even if you take a typical example, my what I do on a day to day as a consultant is more building that relationship, like creating avenues where I understand the problem, working together with the client in sometimes, like, influencing, uh, you know in a different degree, helping them to make the right decisions. So from my experiences, from what I see, that as a consultant, and I think it's very different from outsourcing, where in outsourcing it's pretty much like, you give away that completely to a different company, who might be running things completely on their own. There's not a lot of collaboration, there's not a lot of interaction between the two companies there. To me, I feel like that's it's a different working model.
Yep, yeah. And I guess for you, like personally, what do you enjoy? What do you enjoy about being IT consultant, and why you think that was like a right career choice for you?
Yeah. I think, like, when I started, like, what I was looking for is I wanted to stay as a technologist, like, stay as a developer, but still be able to grow, in it. And as well, like, I wanted to, like, kind of try my hand in different things. Say, for example, like, when I started, I was doing a lot of back end work. So in the aerospace, and like, it was mostly C# and few testing frameworks. I was like, wanted to try different things. So this gave me an opportunity to kind of try out and see if I like it or not. So I've done different work, like I've done front end, I've done a bit of mobile app development. Then I realized probably that's not what I enjoy the most. So I like done a bit of it and maybe like kind of stopped there. But after that, I've done a lot of DevOps and infrastructure work, and I was able to do that for a few years. And more after that, like, I kind of tried a few data engineering projects. So sometimes I feel like it pushes me beyond what I know I can do, and it creates that opportunity. And sometimes it puts you in a spot where it pushes you beyond what you are comfortable with. And sometimes, like, that kind of you know puts you in a spot where you must develop skills and learn on the job. And I think it kind of, one thing I appreciate the most is the variety. And I'm really lucky in ThoughtWorks. Like, it's a lot of conversations in terms of where we want to go, what I want to do next. So it's easy to kind of create those opportunities for people. And I think the second thing is sometimes, like, as a consultant, it helped me to look at problems from a completely different perspective. So sometimes like you're not part of the problem, you're not within the box, you're coming with an external perspective. So that kind of really gave me a different perspective. I used to think all the problem is all technology. It's like you write good code, you write good quality code, then that's the way to go. And if you do it, you're going to be successful. But I think now, after all these years, I would say that's only part of the problem. So a lot goes with, are you doing things at the right time? Or do you have the right people? And are your people engaged? Are you building the right product at the right time? So a lot goes with it. So I think it gave me that different perspective when I work on different clients. So I get exposed to their ways of working, their models, their thought process. So I'd say I picked bits and pieces from along my journey.
Yeah, definitely. And like, do you think here you go. Actually, Michael, have a question for you about bits and pieces. As a consultant, have you seen a common problem between different companies that would make a great startup idea that they can build and make money on?
Yeah, I would say help people really understand. I think like one of the common, at least from what I have seen, the common thread is that how do you build minimum in but still do it in such a way that it's production quality, and it's built in such a way that you can actually take it to the market, put it on people's hand, confidently say them that, hey, go ahead and use it. It's going to work, whatever I've built. I think like kind of that's to me is the common thread. I think as an industry, we all talk about it a lot, but when it comes to practice, I think a lot happens. Like who needs to be involved and how do we know what's the minimum? And again, like when you build that minimum product, okay, what is good looks like, and all the people who are working on it, do they have a common understanding of what is good looks like? And if you take shortcuts, or if you kind of let go a few things, then how do you handle it? When do you handle it? How do you come back? I think like it might seem like we have been talking about this for a long time, but as an industry, if I look at it, probably still a long way to go to get things right. And I think like once a company reaches there, then comes the point of, okay, how do I scale now? With all you know the evaluation and the funding, sometimes I feel like there's so much emphasis and there's so much focus on gaining new customers and starting to show the revenue, that very soon people kind of put technology in the back, and they really forget that like it's actually technology like which actually helped them build the product. Yeah, I think to me
So here
that's
we
like
go, Michael.
seeing it.
So you knew you knew startup idea will be the process of building the
Yeah.
MVP products, the framework for MVP products. Um, so coming back to you, Kira, as well. One of the questions I want to ask: do you think that you mentioned that you really enjoy like variety and seeing different clients and seeing like maybe different problems, experience different challenges. Do you
Mm-hmm.
think some people who obviously go to consultancy have a particular like personality traits? So like uh,
Mm-hmm.
consultants maybe, I don't know, more extroverted, or
Mm-hmm.
more like easily getting bored, or or
Okay.
something like this. I don't know, like, do you
Okay.
think it's like, because some people don't want to go to consultancy because it
Sure.
feels they feel uncertain, they feel like, oh
Mm-hmm.
no, I want to be like, I want to work on the same project for a long time and really
Mm-hmm.
like go deep in something. So do you think
Mm-hmm.
it's some personality traits there, or is it just different career choice?
Okay. I think probably the first thing I should say is I'm not an extrovert, and
Here you go.
I think I'm an introvert, and I'm sure like all my friends, people around me would definitely agree with it. And I'm not a person who'll talk a lot. So I think if I survived and if I'm thriving, probably others can as well. So talking about personality, I don't think plays a significant role. I think I wouldn't discount just because someone is of a particular personality or a particular nature that they can't work as a consultant. I would not discount that, but I think there is a bit of it. But like you said, again, even in the consulting world, again, there are different kinds of engagement. There might be few engagements which are like 2 to 6 weeks, some which are like, 3 months to 4 months, some are like 6 months, some are like 12 to 18 months. So even in the consulting world, again, there are like, different nature of engagement. So sometimes people might prefer one over the other. And if you ask me, when I started early on, I was, of course, like kind of preferring to stay on a longer engagements. One, I want to get comfortable, and people around me, I felt like people around me were much smarter. So I was even thinking, like, if I do I belong here? Will I be successful? So like intentionally pick the ones which are like longer term. But I kind of put myself on a shorter term engagements. So that really kind of pushed me beyond, my boundaries. So even within the consulting world, again, there are options. If people are keen on one type over the other, then there are always options.
And I think also the certainty of the permanent job is
Hmm.
really vague as well, because we
Yeah,
think that if we're getting permanent job, we will be more certain, more safe. But at the end of the day, if it's some restructure or something changing, like there is no really guarantee that you still have your permanent job. So obviously,
mm.
there's a few perks there, but this certainty is quite subjective sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. I know. Yeah.
um but I guess what we want to also talk about the challenges. Yeah, so the
Hmm.
challenges of being IT consultant. And I think you have a few tips for those who
Hmm.
want to enter
Yeah,
consulting world. And I guess
sure.
would like you to share those ones, especially coming from your particular experience when
Mm.
you just started.
Yeah,
What was your expectation, and what you didn't
sure.
expect?
Yeah. Yeah. I was really, when I was talking to Yana, like about like, the session and what I want to talk about. So one thing came to my mind is that there are certain things which I did not intentionally think about before working as a software consultant. There were certain things that kind of I took it for granted. Maybe I didn't know the importance of it. So when I started, like all my focus was more on being an awesome developer, uh, being really good in my technology skills, being really good in some of the practices like test-driven development, or pair programming or continuous delivery. So if one does a generic search in the internet, I think these things come up. Like it's easy for one to understand, okay, what should I be good at? What should I be focusing on? But I also wanted to share the other part of it. What are some of those little things, subtle things that it was not there on top of my mind. But now when I sit back and reflect on my journey, I feel like, hey, those were also equally important. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to talk about them a bit, even like hear from you folks, like if you resonate with it and if you had any similar experience.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, please, guys, whoever is maybe on the call who work in consultancy as well, let us know if you what you experienced, when you entered the consultancy first. So, okay, the first tip when you're entering the, IT consultancy.
Yeah. I think the first thing is like, maybe I'm sure you would all agree, with this one. The first thing is like, be curious and approach things with an open mind. Uh, so what I mean to say is that like, as a consulting, like in a consulting world, like you'll be approached to work on a particular problem, And in most cases, another client might have already started with the journey. So they might be halfway through it, or they might have certain decisions that are already being made. And I think it's not helpful if one lands there and rocks the boat on day one. Like this someone like um, with decades and decades of software experience. When I got to work with them, they shared a little story and gave a bit of an advice that the first thing you need to look at it is like history of decisions. Like, so a company might have a wall, and there might be there would have been certain constraints, or situations like why certain decisions may have been made in the past. um, Sometimes as a developer, when I go look at it, yes, they're not great, they're not ideal, but they were made with this certain constraints in mind for a particular reason. So as a consultant, probably the first thing I would say is like, just be there, understand both, like kind of the present and the past, and approach with an open mind. And the other thing might be like related to this is that in most cases, the client would come to you and say that, hey, help us build this, hey, help us solve this. But sometimes it's worth maybe taking a pause and really understand, okay, by building this system, what are you trying to solve? What are you trying to achieve? So sometimes it's good to really understand the context, or sometimes even like good to understand if that is the right product for what they're trying to do. So they may think they know the solution, they may think they know the path ahead, but in most cases, like, one, it's good to validate it, and number two, it's also good to understand, because you're going to be core part of the team and you're part of the journey. So like it's good to have that context and the background in mind. And from my experience, there were a few examples like where uh, we were kind of invited to come develop something. And when we landed there, when we asked these questions, then we were like, okay, completely stop the whole thing. And we are like, okay, we need to do completely different. So it had happened in the past for good. And this is
Yeah.
one something which I felt like, okay, it's not a skill, it's not like it's not like communication presentation, or a dev language or a practice, but I think it's more that mindset, that headspace, uh, when you start on as a
Yep.
consultant.
Yeah, again, approaching with the open minds, and maybe not even like jumping into conclusions straight away, and
Yes,
yeah, spending
exactly.
more time to actually understand the context. I like the next point that you would like to
Hmm.
mention, because I think that's something that a lot of people miss, and then
Yeah. I,
then jumping into consultancy.
Yeah. I mean, I should say even maybe I was one of those, where like on day one it's like just question everything. Um, and I was like really wanted to talk about this because especially in the software industry, uh, end of the day, sometimes I feel like it's all about people. And in the consulting world, like very rarely you might get to work uh, with a startup from day one. So most of our project is not greenfield. So which means that like you'll be working with the people, working on a solution which might be either halfway through, or even otherwise, in majority of the cases, it has to coexist in that ecosystem. So when I say ecosystem, so it's both the software ecosystem and the operating model, or like kind of the people ecosystem. So in case of software ecosystem, so you'll have existing system, existing services, existing patterns of how systems talk to each other. And when you're building one, it becomes a piece of the puzzle. So there are many pieces that are already existing, that are already crafted, that are working in a certain way, So sometimes you have to work with those constraints. So sometimes like I, what we hear from the client is that it's not really helpful if you just want to kind of throw away everything and build from the scratch, because that's not practically feasible. So if you're like looking at it from the software perspective, I think we need to be really empathetic about how they came there, the existing ecosystem, and appreciative of it, but at the same time, not losing sight of where you want to go. I think sometimes like where they want to go is 180 degree opposite of where they are today. I think that's the value a consultant brings in, where you still continue to build in the current ecosystem, but at the same time slowly and steadily define a pathway towards, okay, how do you go to the future? How do you start building for the future? I think that's very important, and that would kind of, from my from what I have seen, that'll have an impact on your decision making. That'll have an impact on who does the decision making, how frequently do you look at those decisions, how do you revisit them, and how do you kind of capture the rationale behind those decisions and all that. I think that's kind of one part of the story. And the other one is the people part, like they're structured in a way and they've been operating in a certain way. You cannot just go and change everything in a fortnight. Like I think we need to really be empathetic to people and be more a listener. And if you're like bringing about a big change, then do it properly, wholeheartedly. And it's just not about being successful in a short term, but it's also more about how do you build things for the long term.
And I think, to add to it and summarize it, I think a lot of people just want to be heard. And they don't want to, they don't want someone to come in and tell them what to do. They want to be heard. And sometimes just letting them opportunity to talk about what they build. And they probably if it's a startup, they will be proud of the things they built as well. They want to share it. They want to share it with you. They want to show you. And I think that's a kind of big part of the being a consultant, letting people to show you, to tell you, and you're there to listen and basically to listen. And Jason saying empathy, not an uncommon issue with people in IT.
And then interestingly, in most cases we have seen, as a consultant, you'd go and you'll have some point of views, you'll be recommending certain things. And in most cases, the existing team, people at the client would have already told that. So sometimes there's an advantage as a consultant if you say that's has more weightage, or people hear it, or people from different levels kind of pay attention to it. So that's also one thing to keep in mind, and be more empathetic to people there, like what did they already try and how far did they go, and maybe if things didn't work out, then why, and maybe working with them. I'd say that's more enjoyable if you're like kind of working with people there.
And I think it's kind of leading us to your next point. It's okay to be vulnerable.
Yeah. So I wrote this, more recently, I've been like kind of mentoring and coaching other people for a few years. And when I talk to people, especially the ones who are new to the industry, sometimes there is a perception that if someone is a consultant, they should kind of know everything. Say, for example, if you're going to a client and their system is, say, based on Golang or Kotlin, kind of there is an inherent expectation that the developer who's going there is good or an expert in those languages. I think it's good to have, but you're not going to get a team where like everyone knows about everything. So even as a consultant, I think it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to accept what you know, because the biggest trait a consultant over a few years would have is the ability to actually learn things really quick. And if you have been in the industry for a few years now, you'd know, it's not just about the language. It's just only a small part of it, but it's more about the overall, the software, delivery part of it. So you'll have common patterns of identifying what's good and what's not good. So I just want to kind of break that perception that if one is a consultant, if they're going to start on a piece of work, then they're an expert in it and they should be knowing everything. Not necessarily. Probably in some cases, maybe that's not the value you bring to the table as well.
And I guess again, coming to this like vulnerability piece, if you admitting that you don't know something and clear about it and transparent, you get more respect from the people as well,
Yeah.
instead of coming there and just
Mm.
pretending that you
Mm.
know everything.
And I think it's also applicable to people who are playing even leadership roles, like it's even within the consulting world or even outside of it. So if one is at like team level leadership or um, domain level leadership, I think even for those people who are in a leadership role, I think it's okay to be vulnerable. And
Yeah.
we are all human beings, like none of us are unicorns.
And it's always will be someone who can do something better, and
Yeah.
you just need to be clear in terms of what is your strengths and what is your weaknesses, and make sure to communicate it clearly as well. And I guess which is bring us to the next point. um,
Yeah. Know when to say no. I found like as a I mean if you look at like I feel like I have like two paths in my professional life, like a good stint of working in a product company and equal uh you know time spent in consulting world. So if you look at it, feel like people in a product company, if I've been working in a place for a number of years, then they find it easier to say no to certain things. But when someone is like working as a consultant, like working on a particular problem, sometimes there is an inherent expectation that a consultant should say no for anything. And
yeah.
I think that's a skill, even like that's a consulting skill. Like, so if you look at myself, like as a developer and as a consultant, probably when I started, I was like more strong as a developer and not that strong as a consultant. And only over the years I've like learned and picked certain skills as a consultant. And from what I have seen, is like one of the skills is like knowing when to say no, and then based on that, like having the right skills to actually communicate it. So when you say no, or when you have conflicting opinions, of course that's the conversation is not going to be easy, that's not going to go smooth. Then in those cases, like how does one deal with those conversations, and how does one actually take it forward? So if you unwrap this, I feel like this is one area where if one is in a consulting taking a consulting job, maybe you need to really ask yourself, does these things come naturally to you, and do you have those skills, have you done them? So you'll see more of that conflicts of opinion, managing conflicts, like kind of managing perceptions, dealing with different personalities, different leadership styles, and like kind of you'll see a bunch of skills that you need to develop to actually be good in it, or be comfortably, say no to certain things.
Jason have a few questions regarding our few last points.
Mm-hmm.
So surely it isn't something that you want to be too open about with the client, right? I'm new to the industry. industry manager is shielding me from talking directly to clients so I don't give a bad impression.
Yeah, I know.
But
I
yeah,
think
so
totally.
yeah, what to do, like, if you're not an expert with everything, you want to kind of admit those things, but you can't just keep admitting that you don't
Yeah.
know anything.
Yeah, I think sometimes it depends. Say if you just put a hypothetical scenario that the client is explicitly asking for, say, give me experts on this language or this area, then I think in those cases, it's good to tell them upfront. I think probably you'll gain more by being open about it. I think that's where you need to have those consulting skills of how do you convey that information, right? Like you're a part of the team for a reason. So if it's just not about the skill, then you bring something else to the table. It could be something else. It could be your domain knowledge. It could be about you've done similar things elsewhere, but in a different in a technology stack, or it's like completely your area of interest. So you're going to be really engaged, or like you bring some value to the table. So I think the communication comes down to how do you say it in such a way that it is just not about admitting, hey, I don't have any of the skills, but it's also about helping them understand why else that I need to be part of this team. What do I bring to the table?
Yeah, great,
So yeah, I think
great,
it
great
depends.
example.
Maybe,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And that,
timing the conversation would also.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that's exactly what comes with experience. As more those conversations you have with the clients, as more you kind of understand how to frame it in the
Yes.
way that, if the client is asking you about particular skill, it doesn't mean that you need to say like, oh no, I'm not an expert in these skills, but you actually coming back to solving the problem and understanding
Yeah.
what's the problem and not concentrating on the lacking of the skill or
Mm-hmm.
any particular strengths.
Yeah.
And there's another question related to that from Jason as well. What kind of circumstances do you say no to?
So from the examples, if I pick, say, uh, both as a company and even personally, I believe in certain things. Like I believe in, security when it comes to data. I believe that it's responsibility or a company is accountable to ensure that the data is safe, data is secure, and I also personally believe in kind of building right product, like doing it the right way. So I don't believe in like doing it really really fast, just you know crossing the line for this race, and then which might create more problem for you, in the near future. So there are certain, I feel like, the basic things, which we all as an industry should actually take care of. And if there's a scenario where the client is like telling you that, hey, I don't want you to test, or the client is telling you it's okay to use personally identifiable information just for testing, if they are telling you, giving you access to, say, customer identifiable information just so that it'll be easy for the team to build things, it'll be easy for the team to test things, I think those are the cases like where I'd be like, stop there, be in a position to actually say no, and as well be in a position to clearly help them understand why you think it's such a big deal, and help them understand like what could be the alternatives, how else could that be solved, and how else could you do it. So there's just few examples. You may have different, scenarios. Sometimes like based on your company, their, kind of their beliefs, and personally like kind of what you and your team believes in.
Yeah, totally. Great examples there. Brian have a few comments here. A huge part of being vulnerable is to acknowledge you don't know anything. Gives a great opportunity for directional talent growth. Also, team leaders have to teach how to say that and the
Yeah.
framing.
Yeah. Yes.
Big,
I think that's
yeah,
another, what I've seen is that sometimes it just comes with experience. But like I said before, these are not like, uh, whatever I'm saying is it's not like there's like subtle little things which I was not consciously thinking about. So if you're new to the industry, if you're part of the team, maybe bring up that conversation with your team leadership, like help them understand or talk with them, work with them to see how this could be communicated, with the client.
100%. And Kira, I'm just really cautious about the time. We're already at the 50 minutes of our live
Mm.
stream. Time flies and you're having fun. um, great, great conversation so far. And guys, please make sure to hit this like button as usual. Little, quick marketing thing here. Make sure if you're getting value from our conversation, make sure to obviously like this video, share with those who want to hear this, and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. But okay, so before we wrap up things, I know there's a few more points we want to cover, but I guess let's just briefly to talk about this point, because I think it's quite important for people to to understand. Yeah, so when you going into consultancy, what's better, to be a specialist or the
Mhm.
generalist?
I think that the best part of being a consultant is that you can actually be both. Uh, so what I mean to say is that because you sometimes like you get to choose the opportunities, or you're not kind of stuck, or you're not like belong in a place for years. So you get to do different things. So for example, like with me, I was like consciously trying shorter engagements on longer engagements, few shorter engagements in a one longer engagement. So what I was getting out of that is that the shorter engagements would usually be about defining a strategy, or defining a roadmap, or validating something, or doing an assessment. So it's kind of at a broad level, but in most cases those kind of engagements will have an opportunity to interact with the business or different roles, just not your architects and your technologists. And then do that for a while, and then if I pick a longer engagement, so I could be heads down developing something, implementing code, where that actually gives me an opportunity to develop my breadth of experience. So I think that's the best part of consultant. Like, so sometimes like people describe as a paint dip archetype, like where it's like a broad stroke of a paint brush, then you get few paint kind of dripping down, and each drip is of different levels of depth. So I feel like in a consulting world, like, you get to learn multiple things, but you might have different levels of expertise on different things. And so sometimes it's in your hands, like kind of in consulting, where I feel like the best part is like the career is in your hands. If I decide today that like I want to heads down, just go develop expertise on just one thing, I can do that. And tomorrow if I'll be like I just want to try different things, I could do that. So I think it's like it's in my hands, and I think that's kind of the best part of it.
Yeah, it gives you this flexibility. Jason saying the T-shaped skill expertise idea. I feel like it's an
Yeah,
M shape.
yeah,
It's like an M shape, not the T shape.
I think like it
Like,
kind of came from that. It's very common in the industry, but I think yeah, T-shaped like kind of maybe restricts one to think that okay, maybe they're just data engineer, or they're just like in one thing. I think paint tip is like just the next evolution of it.
no, definitely. Yeah. So, and I guess yeah, coming back to this, the idea that you basically in consultancy you can be both.
Yeah,
And you have opportunity to go deep into one thing, or you have opportunity to gain experience in the different fields and different
yeah.
problems. But I feel like you can be really a specialist in the communication skills if you work in consultancy.
Yeah, of course. And also like consulting, like you'll have so many people around you who are so good that sometimes maybe others would be complimenting you. So yeah. And I feel like talking about generalist versus specialist, kind of what I feel is that one informs the other. So in my experience, like whenever I do a few tech strategy kind of work, assessment kind of work. I get to see that broad picture. And when I go and do a long-term implementation, I learn from that in terms of what went well, what didn't go so well, what was a pain point, what was a challenge for the business, what should we keep in mind early on when we're starting to build something new. And I think like kind of both of these kind of one informs the other.
Yeah, definitely. And Kira, I'm again cautious of the time. We've have 5 minutes left. So guys, as usual, there is like a pleasant surprise at the end of the stream. So we're gonna ask Kira to pick the person who gonna have a virtual coffee chat with her. While she's thinking who gonna be this lucky person, I'm just gonna quickly remind you, obviously, that I'm going live every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. And we have quite a few new topics coming up. And I forgot what's coming next week. I'm just looking for the slide, and I lost that slide. What's the day today? That's a 4th. 4th of May. So next week is the 11th of May. Who are we talking on the 11th of May? Is it this one? No, that's 18th of May. Anyway, 18th of May, in 2 weeks, we're going to talk with Pauline on how to shift your career from sales to software engineering. So she has a quite interesting career path. So if you coming from non-IT background and thinking to shift, so join us on 18th of May with Pauline. And, I can't find what's on 11th. You have to just go to my meetup group and find out what's happening on the 11th, so you don't miss out. But basically, you can join me every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. And Kira, did I give you enough time to pick the winner for virtual coffee chat?
Yeah, I think that's a difficult one. I think like I didn't pay attention to the names, just looking at the questions, but at least Jason is someone coming to my mind, like at least from the most recent question, based on the archetype and the T-shaped person. So more than happy to
Yeah.
have a chat if they're keen.
Here we go, Jason. Your time again. I think it's a 4th giveaway that Jason will be winning on this show. I'm just thinking maybe we should just give it to someone else, just because Jason's been just too active in the last 2 weeks. Just
More than happy if someone is particularly looking to get into the consulting or someone is new in the
actually,
consulting.
or who we had there. Jason, how about I have a deal for you? We'll have a chat with you, because we actually never had a virtual coffee with you. So how about that? You've been really active this live stream. I catch up with you for virtual coffee, so I can actually meet you, face to face as well, because we haven't done it, and you've been like joining the live streams every time. And who wanted to be in the IT consultancy? I think Jay Prash wanted to be IT consultant.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we will be generous and give the virtual coffee to him this time, so he can ask all the questions about your career.
Sure.
Sounds good. And okay, let's just summarize. We have a minute and a half. Basically, my son. Oh, Jason's saying not fair. Oh. Okay, Jason. I'll let's take it offline and decide with all the virtual coffee chats. So let's just summarize, I guess, what we've been talking about in the last 30 seconds. Basically, my takeaway from today's conversation here is then you transition your career to consulting. There's a few like subtle things that you might not think about, and think about concentrating on your technical skills, and concentrating maybe on like complex technology and stuff, but forget about a lot of parts that comes with the human connection and human communication. So I guess now, if you would need to summarize, like I don't know, the top advice for someone who want to go into IT consultancy, what would it be?
I think go with an open mind. You'll enjoy the ride.
Perfect. Here we go. Jason saying, Brian saying, I'll chat with Jason. Perfect. Here we go, Jason. There's a lot of people who want to chat with you. Problem solved. Thank you so much. And again, come with open mind and enjoy the ride. Thank you again, Kiru, for your time. It's been an amazing discussion. Thank you, everyone, for participating. And we'll see you next Wednesday.
Thank you. It was actually good talking about things. See you all.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.